John, you're done. Submit your resignation by the end of the month.
Done, sir?
That's right. A useless high school graduate like you is out.
The words from Sean, the sales manager at the small company where I work as an administrative clerk, hit hard. Earlier, a meeting was held with the executives, and it was decided that I would be laid off. Why? Me?
The reason's simple. You're a high school graduate, an invisible office worker. Plus, you embarrassed me big time on that foreign client projects. I recommended to the execs that you be the first to go.
But I have a family. The more I panicked, the more Sean seemed to enjoy himself, laughing smugly.
And get your stuff packed up already.
As soon as my shift ended, I rushed out of the office. As I walked aimlessly, wondering how to break the news to my family, I heard a voice behind me.
Excuse me, are you from that company?
Well, yes, I am.
When I turned around, a stunning blonde woman with an air of sophistication approached me. Her next words would change my life forever. My name is John Thomas. I'm a 42-year-old administrative clerk at a small business. I live with my wife, Ashley, and our third-grade daughter, Nancy. Sitting at my desk in a corner of the office, typing on my computer, am surrounded by piles of documents. While the sales staff chat amongst themselves, I always feel a bit out of place in their circle. One of my colleagues, Charles, approached me with a grin.
Hey, John, still keeping things low-key.
Keeping it low-key keeps the peace. Staying unnoticed is the best way.
Come on, man. You've got to put yourself out there. By the way, heard you're in charge of organizing the next company party?
I sighed quietly at Charles' casual tone. Yeah, Sean asked me to take care of it. Charles made a grimace in response.
Sean's always hard on you, you know? He's all talk about focusing on numbers with us in sales, but he doesn't actually do anything. Let's grab drinks and vent about it sometime.
A few minutes after Charles went back to his desk, the office door burst open and Sean walked in. All the staff immediately straightened up, pretending to be busy. Sean had joined the company as the sales manager, replacing the previous manager who retired at 60. Apparently, he's the nephew of one of the executives. Sean approached my desk, giving me a cold stare.
Hey, John, did you finish that report?
Yes, here it is. He took the document I handed him, flipping through it carelessly.
Still doing boring work, you know? Well, I guess even a high school graduate can handle something like this.
The room fell silent as Sean continued.
Whatever. Just make sure you keep supporting the sales department. Stick to the grunt work, all right?
I nodded without saying a word. Despite Sean's snide remarks, I honestly believed at the time that if I just kept working hard, my life would remain stable. During lunch break, I was chatting over coffee with my fellow clerks. That's when my colleague, Mark, brought up the topic of layoffs, making the atmosphere tense.
Sean's apparently picking people for layoffs. They say it's because of poor sales performance.
I heard office staff like us are the first targets.
Though I tried to ignore the conversation, unease crept into my thoughts. I knew there was talk of large-scale layoffs, but I figured my steady work ethic would keep me safe. The next day, when I arrived at work, Sean was already at his desk, flipping through papers. Even though it was a bit early, Sean wasted no time calling out to me.
Hey, John, come here for a sec.
I barely had time to set my bag down before walking over to Sean's desk.
The sales department's files are a mess. Organize them.
Isn't that something human resources handles?
What? Who cares about human resources? A high school grud like you doesn't get to complain.
Suppressing my frustration, I replied simply, "Got it." There was no point in arguing. It would just make things worse. I started sorting through the files one by one. Watching me, Sean let out a satisfied grunt.
Make some copies after that. Then restock the warehouse supplies.
I kept my face neutral, inwardly thinking, yeah, whatever. By the time I finished the menial tasks Sean had assigned me, it was almost the end of the afternoon meeting. Sean, who had been attending the meeting, returned to the office. He was carrying several thick files in his arms.
John, make 100 copies of all these.
100 copies. Sir?
That's right. Oh, and the shredder's jammed. Go fix that too.
When I replied, understood, Sean smirked and added more instructions with a sly grin.
And by the way, you're organizing this month's sales department party. Make sure you book a venue.
Again? I mean, wasn't I already in charge for this weekend's party too?
You can't do much else, so you should be grateful for the honor.
Cut me some slack. This is the third time this month. Though I wanted to voice my frustration, I held back. I nodded slightly to show my agreement. A few hours later, even after clock out time, I was still alone in the office making copies. It was already dark outside. That's when Sean walked in, putting on his coat.
Hey, John, still working?
Sorry, sir. It'll take just a little longer. When I said that, Sean's eyes narrowed sharply.
What? You're not putting this on overtime, are you?
No, of course not.
Good. See you then.
With a satisfied nod, Sean left the office. Not putting in for overtime. It's just expected at this point. Alone in the office, I continued my work. I finally finished a little after 8 p.m. When I got home, my kids rushed up to me.
Dad, help me with my homework.
Hey, stop that. Dad's tired. I'll help you instead.
It's fine. Let me see. As I looked over Nancy's homework with a gentle smile, Ashley called out to me from the kitchen.
You've been working a lot of overtime lately. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Even as I said that, my heart felt heavy. A week later, in the afternoon at the office, I was swamped with preparing documents. On the monitor in front of me, Pages of data and contract terms were displayed. I reviewed the documents repeatedly, carefully typing each section. From his seat behind me, Charles peeked at the files on my screen.
Another contract?
Yeah, it's for the sales department.
Man, that's impressive. Normally, they'd outsource something like that.
Apparently, it's to save costs.
Still so diligent. I'd never do that if I were you.
Charles shrugged with a grin, and I chuckled lightly in return. Well, it's part of the job. Even as I said it, something felt off deep down. The contract was complex, requiring legal expertise. It didn't make sense for an office clerk like me to be drafting it. That evening, as I finished printing the contract, Sean walked into the office at the worst possible moment.
John, is that contract ready?
Yes, here it is. I handed him the file. Sean skimmed through it and sneered.
Not bad for a high school graduate.
Thank you. The words Sean threw at me sounded like praise on the surface, but it was clear he was looking down on me. I brushed it off as usual, but then Sean's eyes glinted sharply.
All right, I'll pass this off as a draft proposal I made.
What? I couldn't help but question him. That's just wrong.
Are you stupid? If the client finds out this was made by a high school graduate, they'll lose confidence.
Sean casually took credit for my work and walked off as if it were the most natural thing to do. I couldn't say a word, only watch his back as he left. The next day, Charles came up to me.
Hey, I heard that contract Sean was working on got approved.
Oh, really?
You know, he's been bragging that my reliable proposal and contract sealed the deal. But you're the one who did all that, right?
I replied with a wry smile. Well, it doesn't really matter.
No way. That was a tough contract, wasn't it? You drafted it too. Why aren't you saying anything?
It's just easier not to stir the pot. Charles shrugged, looking exasperated.
You're way too nice.
Clerks like me work best behind the scenes, making it easier for everyone else to do their jobs. Even as I said it, I was trying to convince myself it was true. That evening, a party was held to celebrate the sales department's big contract. Sean proudly recounted the success, while everyone around him played along, praising him.
See? Experience always pays off. John, you need to learn from this.
I simply nodded slightly. Though I felt Charles' concerned gaze on me, I deliberately avoided looking his way. On the way home from the party, Charles and I walked side by side.
Honestly, doesn't this piss you off?
Well, yeah, but that's just how he operates.
It's frustrating. Without you, that contract wouldn't have gone through.
Charles and I quietly looked up at the sky. This is my role, and I guess that's fine. I knew very well that resignation had seeped into my thoughts. A month later, in the conference room, Sean stood confidently in front of the projector.
We finally secured the French market entry project for a foreign company. Apparently, they were intrigued by the contract I successfully closed recently.
Sean was preparing to meet with the CEO of the French subsidiary of the foreign company, Emily Rodriguez. The room erupted in applause, though there was an undercurrent of unease.
Seriously? Foreign contracts involve really complicated legal and financial stuff.
Ignoring these murmurs, Sean raised his voice even more.
No need to outsource. That just racks up costs. Well, handle everything in-house.
In the now silent conference room, I frowned. They're not outsourcing for a case involving registrations and contracts? Sean, this project requires legal filings and contract drafting, right? Aren't we going to consult attorneys or accountants? Sean glared at me.
What? Don't act like you know legal services, you high school grad. You'll handle it just fine.
Well, I could feel the sympathetic stares of those around me. You've got to be kidding me. Though overwhelmed by the sudden responsibility, I found myself scrambling to prepare the necessary documents for the foreign company's contract that Sean had dumped on me. A few days later, skipping my lunch break, I was poring over a mountain of contract clauses to draft the documents. My desk was piled with books, and my monitor displayed pages of dense legal terms.
Is it done yet?
I'm doing the final checks now. Just then, as I reviewed the contract it drafted, I noticed something important.
Just send that file to my email already.
Wait, Sean snatched the mouse out of my hand and forcefully took control of my computer, sending the file to his email. Well, Sean, there's a mistake. My signature is still on it. Please make sure to remove that before sending it to the client.
Yeah, I got it. Good work.
Sean waved me off dismissively, his annoyance obvious. On the day of the meeting, Sean returned to the office and called me over to his desk.
Hey, John.
What is it?
You put your signature on the contract, didn't you? You're not even certified. I was humiliated out there.
I had assumed Sean would have fixed that, but apparently, he didn't even bother to check and submitted it to the client as it was. I'm sorry.
You idiot. CEO Rodriguez pointed it out, and I had to cover by saying, it's just a legal draft, but it's already been sent to the client.
I could only apologize. As I continued my usual clerical work at my desk, my fingers felt unusually heavy. Maybe it was because the executives were currently in a meeting about layoffs, or maybe it wasn't. I couldn't tell. The clock showed it was past 3 p.m., and the office was filled with tension. Sean emerged from the meeting room and scanned the employees.
Hey, John, come with me.
I was startled to be called, and Charles, who had been chatting next to me, glanced over.
What do you think it's about? More paperwork?
I don't know, but I've got a bad feeling about this. I stood up and followed Sean into the hallway, slipping into a small meeting room. It was just the two of us. As the door closed, Sean sat down, crossed his arms, and looked up at me.
John, you're done. Submit your resignation by the end of the month.
For a moment, I didn't understand. Done, sir?
That's right. A useless high school graduate like you is fired.
His words weighed heavily in my ears. Why? Me?
The reason's simple. You're a high school graad and an invisible clerk. Plus, you humiliated me on that foreign client project. I told the execs you should be the first to go.
But I have a family. Sean smirked.
So what? Pack your things and get out.
I clenched my fists. If this was a decision made in a meeting, then an official notice would follow. No matter what I said, it wouldn't change the outcome. Feeling defeated, I left the meeting room. How long had it been since I'd left work right at the end of my shift? Sean was shouting something behind me, but I ignored him and walked out of the building. The cold wind stung my cheeks. I hunched my shoulders and let out a sigh. My steps felt heavy and my vision blurred with tears. How am I supposed to explain this to my family? That thought weighed heavily on me. My daughter's been working so hard for her middle school entrance exams. The idea that it might all go to waste was unbearable. As I wallowed in despair, someone called out from behind me.
Excuse me, do you work at that company?
Well, yes, I do. When I turned around, a glamorous blonde woman was approaching me. Her appearance was strikingly out of place.
I have a question. Do you know a John Thomas?
Well, that would be me.
Really? How lucky am I? You're the one who made this document, right?
She smiled as she handed me a document. My eyes widened in shock. It was the report I had prepared at Sean's request. This?
Your name's on it. Certified Legal Clerk John Thomas, right here.
The blood drained from my face. Oh, that's just a reference document.
No need to be modest. I already looked up your name and registration number. I know it's legitimate. Besides, your signature wasn't just on the contract. It was also on the tax and labor proposals, wasn't it?
Her pursuit was relentless. I gave in and exhaled softly. Well, actually, I do have certifications as a legal clerk, tax accountant, and labor consultant, but I couldn't find a good job, so I've been working as an office clerk to support my family. That's the truth. After graduating high school, I worked while dedicating myself to earning certifications, believing they would be a strong asset. When I applied to my current company, I already held legal clerk and tax accountant certifications. I even listed them on my resume, but no one brought it up during the hiring process. Later, I realized I needed another certification as a labor consultant, but high school graduates didn't qualify for the exam. So, I enrolled in a correspondence community college, which is a fond memory now.
I knew it. You're an interesting person. Incredible, really. I look forward to working with you as our go-to person from now on.
That might not be possible. I've already been scheduled for a layoff. The blonde woman's face showed surprise.
A layoff.
Yes, I'll be unemployed starting next month. She paused to think for a moment, then smiled.
Well then, how about working for us at 10 times your current salary?
What? I blinked, repeating her words in disbelief. 10 times?
Of course. I mean, someone certified as a legal clerk, tax accountant, and labor consultant who can draft flawless documents getting laid off. That's absurd.
Though bewildered, I could sense from her serious gaze that she wasn't lying.
Allow me to introduce myself properly. I'm Emily Rodriguez.
She handed me her business card. It read, CEO, French Branch Representative, Foreign Enterprise. A CEO? Emily smiled warmly.
That's right. I was sent by our headquarters to spearhead our entry into the French market.
Apparently, she held an MBA and was also a licensed attorney. She's what you'd call a true top-tier elite. I was speechless. Why would someone like you?
I wanted to know about you directly. I was curious if we could recruit such a talented individual.
Feeling uneasy, I lowered my gaze.
You should put those certifications to good use.
Excuse me? Emily lightly tapped the contract with her finger as she continued.
Normally, companies outsource registration, taxes, and labor issues separately. But if we have you, all of that can be handled in-house.
I see.
Having all 3 certifications at once is practically unheard of.
Emily laughed, clearly enjoying herself.
Work like this costs hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to outsource, but you could handle it alone. Would pay you the equivalent of 3 employees' salaries.
3 salaries? I couldn't believe my ears at her proposal. The foreign company Emily worked for had only had a small presence in the French market. But they were now planning a major expansion with a large office. However, to operate smoothly in France, they needed to navigate complex legal, tax, and labor processes. Outsourcing these services was expensive, slow, and often lacked the necessary understanding of French regulations. When Emily learned about my qualifications and skills, she immediately decided I was the perfect fit. Someone who could cut costs and increase efficiency dramatically. I'm about to lose my job, and I don't think I can handle such a big responsibility. Hearing my response, Emily looked at me with a serious expression.
You're underestimating yourself. That's exactly why I want you to work with us. Let's continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable.
With a confident turn, Emily started walking, and I hurried to follow her. She entered a nearby cafe. Sitting in front of a coffee, I felt tense.
Expanding into the French market comes with complex labor and tax challenges. Outsourcing to external experts takes time and is outrageously expensive.
That's true.
Many foreign companies don't have a deep understanding of the French market. That's exactly why they need someone who knows French business practices and has hands-on experience.
Her explanation made perfect sense. Emily took a breath and looked me straight in the eye.
You're not just someone with certifications. You've actually drafted contracts and even prepared tax proposals. That's proof of real-world experience, not just textbook knowledge.
But I didn't think what I did was that impressive. Emily smiled.
The fact that you think it's ordinary makes it even more impressive. Please, take some time to think about it, okay?
After returning home, I shared the conversation with Ashley.
A tenfold salary increase? Is that even possible?
It's a foreign company, but still, it feels unreal. Even as I said that, my decision was already made. The next day, I handed my resignation letter to Sean. The moment he saw it, he grinned smugly.
Well, well. I'm thrilled you made up your mind so quickly after yesterday. Makes this layoff process much smoother.
I didn't say anything. Charles cried, but even that didn't shake my resolve. And so, at the end of the month, I left the workplace where I had spent so many years. The following month, I found myself at the French branch office where Emily was the CEO. The office was sleek and modern, with large windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Feeling a bit nervous, I waited for Emily in the conference room. A moment later, Emily entered.
Thanks for waiting, John.
With an elegant gesture, she took a seat and smiled warmly.
Today's the day we finalize your contract. Let's make it official.
You can count on me. As Emily placed the contract on the table, the conference room door opened. In walked the executives from my former company, along with Sean. Sean wore his usual smug expression, but the moment he saw me, his face twisted in shock.
What?
Sean's eyes widened. He seemed unable to comprehend why I was sitting right in front of him.
John, why are you here?
Oh, you didn't know? John is now our legal and tax affairs specialist.
Sean's expression froze.
Legal and tax?
That's right. And not just that.
Emily added, pausing briefly to scan the room of executives.
John holds certifications as a legal clerk, tax accountant, and labor consultant. Surely you all knew that.
The room fell silent. One of the executives finally broke the silence with an astonished voice.
What? He holds all three of those challenging certifications?
Sean, eyes wide, was at a loss for words. Emily tapped the contract lightly with her pen.
Come on now, let's not feign ignorance in a professional setting. John was drafting our contracts while working at your company, wasn't he?
Contracts.
Well, Sean was claiming he drafted them himself, so perhaps the executives didn't know.
Sean's face briefly turned pale, but he quickly tried to cover it up.
No. Well, it was a team effort. I just compiled everything.
Emily calmly pulled out a document and showed it to the executives.
This is the contract in question. As you can see, it's signed by certified legal clerk John Thomas at the bottom. Didn't anyone bother to verify this?
The executives peered at the document, spotting the signature, and exchanged shocked glances.
Sean, what's going on here?
John's name is clearly written on this.
Sean's voice wavered with panic.
That's a mistake, I swear.
Emily, though smiling, shot Sean a cold glare.
Calling it a mistake seems a bit too convenient, don't you think?
David, one of the executives, stepped forward with a stern expression and confronted Sean.
Sean, you said you created it yourself, didn't you? And you treated someone with certifications as a legal clerk, tax accountant, and labor consultant as just an office worker?
Sean broke into a cold sweat, his gaze darting around the room.
I didn't know. I had no idea John had such certifications.
Well, I never mentioned it, I said with a wry smile.
That being said, we've decided to entrust John with all our legal, tax, and labor operations for our entry into the French market. There's no one more reliable for this task. Honestly, we're thankful you let him go.
Sean slumped back into his chair and muttered weakly.
Why? How could a high school graduate clerk?
Hearing Sean's words, Emily turned her gaze to him.
Perhaps you should stop judging people's worth based on their education level.
She declared this with confidence. One day, less than a month after I started working at Emily's company, I got a call from Charles on my cell phone. What's up?
Hey, it's been a while. Guess what? Things at our company have gotten hilarious.
What do you mean? Charles told me that the moment I left, multiple clients began reevaluating their contracts. Apparently, the contracts and documents that I had meticulously prepared were now a mess. Projects weren't running smoothly. Deadlines were being missed left and right. The company was falling apart. In the middle of all this chaos, Sean was reportedly shouting, "How can losing one high school graduate clerk make contracts disappear?"
And your resume has become a big deal too.
Apparently, Sean had gone back to check the resume I submitted when I joined. He probably wanted to nitpick and criticize it for not mentioning my certifications. But of course, I had listed all my qualifications. Frustrated, Sean stormed into the human resources department, yelling at the top of his lungs.
Hey, human resources. Did you even look at John's resume when you hired him? He had legal clerk and tax accountant certifications.
Charles said Sean's shouting was so loud that it reached his desk. Curious, Charles edged closer to Sean and the elderly human resources manager. The human resources manager, flipping through papers with a sheepish smile, said,
"Well, you see, my eyesight isn't what it used to be. I didn't notice."
You didn't notice? Then what did you even look at when you hired him?
The human resources manager calmly replied,
"He seemed like a good person, and most importantly, he looked serious. I thought he'd be a great hire."
So you let a resume that valuable slip through just because of that?
Charles said Sean covered his face, groaning in frustration.
Anyway, I've decided to leave this company too. I'm planning to find a new job where I can level up, maybe even at your company.
Sounds great. Am rooting for you.
Thanks. Oh, and if Sean tries to call you back, just ignore him, okay?
As Charles predicted, Sean called me later that day. Hello?
Oh, John, how have you been?
I'm doing well, thanks to you. Sean's tone turned ingratiating.
Listen, could you come back to the company? We really need you. Things just aren't the same without you.
Well, I've already started working at my new company, and I don't see any reason to return.
Come on, please. I'll give you a raise and even a better position.
Hearing the desperation in his voice, I couldn't help but smile. My decision's final.
No, this is bad. The execs are blaming me for letting you go. If this keeps up, I'll lose my position. I'm begging you.
It's too late for that. Goodbye. I hung up, Sean's frantic voice still lingering in the background. In the end, Emily's company terminated its contract with Sean's firm. The losses reportedly amounted to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Why did you let John go so easily? Without him, the contract wouldn't have been finalized in the first place.
Though Sean repeatedly insisted he didn't know, his history of taking credit for the contracts I created made his claim unconvincing. It seems he was demoted to take responsibility.
The person you mocked as useless because he's a high school graduate is now earning over $100,000 a year at a foreign company. Quite the amusing turn of events, isn't it?
Provoked by such a sarcastic remark, Sean's anger reached its peak, leading to a massive argument with the executives. As a result, Sean was demoted to warehouse management. Charles later told me that Sean, now overseeing the warehouse, was completely ignored by the younger employees. According to Charles, Sean no longer had the authority or dignity he once held as the sales manager.
Why am I stuck doing inventory checks in a place like this?
Instead of a suit, Sean was now working in a grimy uniform.
Sean, could you organize the inventory data in Excel for us?
Excel. How do you use that?
The younger employee gave Sean a puzzled look.
Wait, you can't use Excel? Seriously? Are you joking? Wow, unbelievable.
I used to be the sales manager, you know. I closed major contracts and was even praised in front of everyone.
Yeah, well, that's not relevant now. Just get it done, okay?
Charles said he witnessed this exchange when he stopped by the warehouse one day.
The guy who used to call you a useless high school grad is now being mocked as an incompetent manager himself.
Charles lamented that since he was planning to switch jobs soon, he wouldn't be able to use Sean's downfall as entertainment over drinks anymore. On the upper floor of an office building, I was in a glass-walled conference room, presenting materials to the executives of the foreign company. As I projected slides, I confidently continued my explanation. This contract applies special measures to mitigate financial risks. The executives nodded, taking notes on their tablets. Seeing their satisfied expressions, I returned to my seat. Emily approached me.
John, thanks to you, Today's meeting went smoothly again.
Thank you. I just did what was necessary. With a playful wink, Emily said,
At this rate, you could aim for an executive position in our company.
I smiled gently. I'll keep working hard. On a weekend afternoon, I sat at my desk in the living room studying. Administrative law exam prep books were spread out across the desk. Sipping coffee, I quietly focused on my studies when Nancy called out to me.
Dad, are you studying again?
Yeah, I want to be able to do even more things. Nancy looked at me with sparkling eyes.
Dad, you're amazing. So cool.
I couldn't help but laugh shyly at her words. Not at all. I'm still learning, you know.
Dinner's ready.
Nancy and I replied in unison, coming, and headed to the dining room. The table was filled with warm dishes, and a calm atmosphere enveloped us.
Work seems to be going well.
Yeah, this company is fulfilling. I want to take on even more responsibilities. Ashley gazed at me for a moment before smiling softly.
I'm glad you left your old company.
I paused with my chopsticks, nodding deeply. Yeah, I really am. Just having my family smile was enough for me. That thought hadn't changed. However, I wanted to climb even higher. That ambition lit up my path forward.